Hey, budding field biologist. So today I am out in Annandale, Virginia. I'm going to teach you a little bit about point surveys and transit surveys. So I've come down into the area near Holmes Run Stream. I've taken my field notes. I've got it updated with my location, the time of day, the weather. And now for a point survey, I'm going to sit right here. So I actually brought a camp chair out because it is wet. It's been raining all morning. Ideally, I would have been out this morning because that's when birds are most active, but the weather had other plans and it is really, really hard to hear active singing birds when when it's raining out. So the difference between a point survey and a transect survey is really whether or not you're sitting in one place or you're moving as you're taking the sample. That's the first major difference. But a transect survey can be done with many smaller point surveys along a particular route. So it's good if you have a larger area you're trying to capture. So right now I am definitely in a deciduous forest. You can possibly see some non-native bamboo behind me. That's unfortunately a part of this habitat. Lots of ferns. This is normally flooded and full of swamp cabbage at other times of the year. So lots and lots of habitat for birds. Maybe you can hear a few of them, but for a point survey, my goal is just to sit here for 10 to 15 minutes. Got my binoculars. I'm gonna turn on my Merlin app. So I've got my phone as well with me, and I'm just going to be here for 10 to 15 minutes, listening and observing. If I wanted to do a transect instead, which I will demo for you as well, I would walk to another location, or I would have a series of locations that I'm sampling for smaller numbers of minutes so that it adds up to about 15 minutes worth of time. So the goal is 10 to 15 minutes of sampling, either in one place, point survey, or a series of spots. Another way you could mix this up and do a transect survey more traditionally, if a transect survey is being done both for birds and habitat or just habitat alone, you would walk a straight line and you would observe every few paces. But when you're doing something with a sound ID, like we're going to be doing with Merlin, you really want to get about 200 meters to 400 meters away from where you did your first sample if you want to hopefully capture other birds. So other considerations, so when you're out in the field, when I'm going through this like dense undergrowth, I actually have my shirt tucked in. I have big boots on right now as well because there's a lot of ticks in Northern Virginia and I have no interest in any tick-borne diseases. I also end up wearing something neon when I'm out because the area I'm in is a deer hunting area for Fairfax County. So that season has not started yet, but you need to be aware of where you are and if you need to have any kind of protective clothing on. So I'm gonna go ahead and sit down and take my sample for 15 minutes and I'll be back with the results. All right, so I finished my first recording and set of observations in my first location. So I went a little overkill. So I have my samples. I also recorded their scientific names. The app is gonna give you common names. And then as I was listening for what direction the sounds were coming from so that I could give a certain number observed. And then I went ahead and identified their order and their scientific name later on after I had finished the recording. But here's a perfect example of why I'm keeping a paper list as well as my phone list. So I tried to pull up the recording after the fact and it's giving me an error. So this is a different recording from this summer where you can see the birds that it identified. So it's going to give you common names and an ability to play back the recording. But when you play back that recording, you are not going to be able to tell what direction that sound was coming from. So you won't be able to get a number of birds observed because the same bird may be calling multiple times from one direction. So the only way you can be confident you're hearing multiple birds is if you are hearing sounds from multiple locations around you, or if you actually see the birds. So that's why I've got my binoculars handy. I spotted a number of birds that I don't think were calling, but I couldn't catch them before they flew off again. So I couldn't spot anything by sight. So I was relying heavily on my audio. If I had differences in like ones I saw versus ones I heard, I would note that in my notes as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and take you to another location. Again, if you're just making point observations, like this is the habitat you are wanting to observe exclusively, then you would have your full 15 minutes here, or you could find a series of locations representing the habitat you want to represent. You're probably going to get a slightly more accurate set of species that way as representation, but it's up to you the way you want to observe it. And another option, which is not one I'm very good at, is walking very slowly along a single straight path. And again, this habitat is not conducive to that. If I turn you around, it is really dense. I have to walk kind of in a maze to get through to my next location. So this would not be a good location for a transect walk. But let's see our next location. So I'm getting set up in my new location. I wanted to show you a few things. So I was setting my things down. I spotted a plant with 3 leaves. That is actually not poison ivy, but over here is, right? So one of the things you need to be aware of, you don't have to pick such a heavily forested spot to make your observations. But this is where I'm going to be setting up. I could see the ivy there climbing that tree. Where you find certain kinds of English ivy, you can often find poison ivy as well. There you can see a camera set up on that tree and a deer blind. So again, why I'm wearing my neon out here. And then the reason I've selected this spot, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I am right near Holmes Run Stream now. So this is my final destination and the second place I'm going to be making my observations. So I'm just going to get set up here. I hear a lot of insect activity, a little bit of bird activity, and then my tripod. All right, so I have completed my observations. So I had to start a new page, still had my name, date, page number. I marked how long I made observations. I'm sticking with recording the orders. I did not observe many birds here, but I did see one new one, so I've got its scientific name noted. And then if you go back to the first page, you can see I have a place for latitude and longitude of that first location. That is great to have. I'm not gonna put it in a video for my own privacy. And then you can see I added a length of time that I made those observations, and then started noting the weather and sounds and some of the habitat details of where I was, including evidence of other animals that I saw. I saw lots of evidence of white-tailed deer on the way here. Also some yellow jacket activity, which I could go and add at the end. So again, you're not going to know what's going to be helpful to you for explaining your observations until you've gathered so much more data. And so what's important is you keep your record, and that record has enough detail to be helpful to you later when you're trying to draw conclusions. So whether or not you decide to go out and do a point survey, or use multiple points along a transect, or quietly and carefully walk a transect while having your audio going and looking both ways as you walk, and then sitting down to write things down later. Again, I like any kind of observation where you can sit and write as you're observing, but what you decide to do for the location you're in is what you need to stick with, and the whole team needs to be doing that for consistency. So things to think about. Good luck, have fun making your observations.